there's no other way to do that other than a blockchain. Blockchains are remarkable. Once it hits 100,000, it will take no more than 4 months for it to hit 200,000.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Um, okay, so I thought I would just start by saying that in our last video, we had ended it by talking about some price predictions, and this was about, I think, 2.5 months ago.
Ah,
Um, yeah, and your statement was, if we are going to enter a bull market cycle, Bitcoin needs to be closer to 100. If it's 90 to 100, you will feel okay.
yeah, yeah.
Bang on. Pretty
uh,
much bang on. So how do you feel after this run up?
yeah, I feel like we are um, very well positioned for a bull market cycle because, as we talked about in the last conversation, the post halvening, I needed to see two things. In August and September, I wanted to see some capitulation, which we saw. We saw two capitulations. BTC went from mid 60s down to, I think, 49, 48,000. And then I wanted to see us to start to track up in October and November and December. And as you just said, hit somewhere between 90 and 100. I didn't want it to go much above that. Um, and here we are. What is it, like December 5th,
What?
4th? And it's like the mid 90s,
Nine,
95,
96,
96,000.
97.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we are, what that tells me is we're on track. We're on track for a bull market that would be similar to what we experienced in 2020, 2021. And, you know, Bitcoin went up from about 7,000 at the halvening at that time to 70,000. So it went up 10x. As I've mentioned, I expect Bitcoin in this halvening to go up about 5 times from its price at the halvening, which was about 65,000. So I expect it to be over 300,000 at its peak sometime in 2025, and then to do what it normally does, which is start to pull back in 2026.
Wow. Um, so a price of 300 plus thousand, is that is that the result, let's say, of the current macro landscape we find ourselves in? For example, since we spoke, we've had interest rates fall twice. A Trump victory, talks of US Bitcoin reserve strategy, and a bunch of other stuff, such as the hiring of crypto friendly personnel, let's say, in high positions in government. Is this the, let's say, the ingredients to get to 300,000?
So, what I would say, and this might be controversial, I think Bitcoin was going to do what it was going to do, regardless of the news. And my own view is that people impose on crypto whatever narrative fits the price of crypto. So if Bitcoin were down right now, I would assume people might say, well, Wall Street heavily influences Bitcoin prices, and they're worried about a war in Ukraine spreading to Europe or something. And there's a flight to quality or something like that. So I think it's nice that we have a narrative that reflects what is going on in crypto, but I don't think it's necessary because I think they're detached. And this is always a bit controversial because uh, most people want to know, why did XYZ happen? It makes them feel better, you know? And why did Kamala Harris get pummeled in the election cycle by Donald Trump? Well, the day before the election, most of mainstream media in the US was saying she's going to win. She might sweep all of the battleground states. She might win the popular vote by 10 million votes, whatever. The day after, she lost, and they all had great reasons for why she never stood a chance. I feel like, and I've been around for a while in the investment area, I feel like uh, people find the narrative that fits whatever is going on in the market. And that is particularly true of Bitcoin. So while it's nice that Trump is quite pro crypto, I don't think it matters.
Wow. That's quite a statement to make actually, because it means that Bitcoin is on it's on its own path. Like it's almost as if it
Yes,
doesn't need anyone. Like it's except those that
right.
hold it.
And so here's what I would say to you. I think I have way more evidence to support my position than people who would take the counter position. How many times has the obituary been written for Bitcoin? 100, 1,000?
I think it's
I mean,
400 plus,
endlessly.
500 times. Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw an
endlessly.
I saw an amazing stat recently. If you dollar cost averaged every single time that there was an article obituary, you would have made about 2 million, something like that.
Yeah. So if I thought the outside narrative drove the price, then Bitcoin should have died many, many times.
It's
I
true.
don't think it does.
It's true.
I think we have um, Bitcoin follows its own path. And I wasn't sure if that was going to happen in 2024, if it was going to follow previous halving uh, curves, but it has followed it perfectly so far, And even though I had told people in April 2024 when the halving occurred, I spoke to people on Wall Street who were starting to take positions after the Bitcoin ETFs launched. And I said, just so you know, there's nothing really that's going to go on until Q4. And in fact, wait till August or September, because if past patterns persist in this cycle, we will see capitulations. Even though I told them that, when Bitcoin pulled back in both months, they said, should we get out? Is it over? So um, another thing, which by the way, for anybody who's got diamond hands and has been in crypto for a while, I applaud you, because it's hard to do if you listen to outsiders. And the short term memory of Wall Streeters is going to benefit people with diamond hands this cycle. Because remember, it is only 2 years ago that FTX flamed out, collapsed, and we heard everybody saying once again, it's all a scam. All of the Bitcoin lending companies that went insolvent and all of that. This was a very bad time for Bitcoin and for crypto. But if you if you understood how it's worked in the past, you would know this thing's resilient and we'll get through it. And of course, now we've surpassed the all-time high of the 2020, 2021 bull market. So that says to me, um, so far, so good. Q1 should be very good. And if it is, sometime in 2025, if we follow previous patterns, Bitcoin should get near or even surpass 300,000. And it's, of course, important to remember that's quote, only a 5x, right? That's a 5x return, um, which to crypto people sounds like kind of a boring week, right?
Yeah.
To a lot of people in crypto. Whoever bought the Peanut the Squirrel meme coin says, I don't even want to get up for that. But um, that's why we have to be looking, of course, at all of the rest of the tokens. And of course, XRP in the last couple of weeks is up 5x itself.
So,
So
yeah, I love that you brought up
hold on one second.
XRP. Okay.
Sorry.
So just before because I jump onto altcoins, um, there is three cycles now we can look at, and that's the 2013 spike. There's the 2017 spike, and then there's the
Mhm.
2020 double top. 2013 is also a similar double top. It's just that one is very high compared to the other one. Um, so you are
Mhm.
under the impression that we're gonna follow the 2021 top, because I saw that as the
Yes,
weakest.
I would agree. But also remember, um, as the market cap of any asset gets bigger, it just doesn't have the degrees of freedom that it had before because there's
Stamina.
only so much wealth in the world.
Yeah.
We're at today about $1.9 trillion for Bitcoin. I mean, I remember when the combined market cap of Bitcoin and all the Bitcoin forked um, copycats was in the tens of millions. So
Wow,
it's with
that's
with
scary.
yeah, with not a lot of liquidity, of course, especially after Gox collapsed. So um, I look at it right now, and people like you and me, we have to accept the fact we don't have a lot of data points, right? And I think most people are very level-headed about that who've been in this game a while. We've got three previous halvings, right? So this is our fourth. That's not a lot of data points,
No,
but you go with what you got. And roughly speaking, first half we from the price of the halving to its peak in that cycle, it was a 50x increase. The second half was a 20x. The third half was a 10x. If you ask why I'm thinking 5x, because roughly if you go 50, 20, 10, 4 to 6 is sort of what you would expect if that pattern were continuing. And um, you'll get to 300,000. Um, at 100,000, the market cap of Bitcoin is, call it 2.1 trillion, right? So at 400,000, 450, um, the market cap of Bitcoin is about half the market cap of the world's known gold supply. I think that's pretty impressive. And I think it's not going to get there in this cycle, but it'll be meaningful. It'll be whatever, over 30%. And so that says to me this we will probably, I'll even say, which seems crazy, we will probably at the end of this bull market have um, reputable, so-called reputable sources once again claiming Bitcoin is dead. As crazy as that sounds, I do believe we'll see obituaries. I say that because I've seen them every cycle. But this time around, you do have the ETFs. The market cap of Bitcoin ETF is about $110 billion with about yeah, 800 million of trading volume, which is up a lot from, let's say, 3 months ago. What I'm very impressed with more recently is the market cap of and the volume of Ethereum. So the Ethereum ETF is maybe, I think it's about think it's about 8 or 9 billion. But the trading volume recently has been about 300 million. And so the daily trading volume has been over 30% for Ethereum, has been over 30% of the daily trading volume of Bitcoin. And when we spoke, it was about 5%,
So it's growing.
right? Yeah. Now, I don't want to get too wrapped up in the arithmetic, but you know, uh, Ethereum right now is about 25% of the market cap of Bitcoin. But on an ETF basis, it's only about 7%, right?
So
Like
there's a
8
gap
billion, yeah, 8 billion of Ethereum ETF market cap versus 110 billion of Bitcoin. It's about 7%. But the volume is 37%. I think what that's telling me is people are starting to discover Ethereum ETFs and also thinking, because we didn't talk about where Ethereum's going, but if the past patterns persist for Ethereum, then it should be 2x. It should be 2x the multiple of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes up 5x, which would be 350,000 at its peak in 2025, Ethereum should be, it was roughly $2,000 at the halving, a little more actually, like 22 or 2,300. So it should be over 20,000. It's funny. I can handle 350,000 for Bitcoin more than I can wrap my brain
around 20 for
around,
Ethereum.
yeah, 20,000 for Ethereum. But then I remember when Ethereum was trading at 15 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents.
For me, it was
So,
$45 when seeing Ethereum.
yeah, so that would have been like,
2017,
yeah, April, maybe
March.
April, March, yeah,
Yeah,
2017, yeah. So, and it was $6 in December 2016, and it was like 75 cents in January 2016.
I know.
So, um, uh, I remember thinking when, because me and my partner were part of the crowd sale, I remember thinking like it was depending on how you look at it, one Bitcoin bought you 2,000 Ethereum in the crowd sale, which at the time, given the price of Bitcoin, it worked out to about 30 cents per Ethereum. But Ethereum dropped after it went, after it listed, it actually dropped to half that, to 15 cents. So, but I remember thinking, my partner saying, can you imagine if Ethereum was worth like $10? And I was like,
I lived it.
no, I really can't imagine it. And then went out in summer 2015, and by summer 2017, it was what, like $100, and then by September, October, it was $400. So uh, I keep reminding myself of that you know uh, Bitcoin, heck, XRP just went from
For
50 cents
50 cents.
to $2.50, right? Um, so why not? Like an XRP, I'm sorry, but it doesn't hold a candle. It's not even a real blockchain, right? It's not a public blockchain. So uh, if I look at the market cap of XRP, which is 100 billion or so, uh, uh, yeah, Ethereum should be 50 times the market cap.
Okay, so
Uh,
I have a question for you. Ethereum has always been, for me, the indicator of alt season, no? If ETH is
yes.
bullish, alt season's time to go into alts, basically. And that coincides actually with Bitcoin dominance. So right now, Bitcoin dominance has broken structure and it's clear, like alt season should have begun. But to say Ethereum hits 20,000 and let's say Bitcoin tops at 300 or 400,000, then I don't know how much that would come to in sats, but is that a reflection of a fair value for Ethereum to go up so high, or is that just market mania?
Well, let's put it this way. If you look at just strictly on capability,
Yeah.
then I think it's indisputable that Ethereum should be much higher value than Bitcoin.
Why?
I mean, you can't do anything with it with Bitcoin. And I know all the maxis out there will wet their pants. You know, people who probably don't actually use the damn thing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I am a holder of Bitcoin. I've been a holder of Bitcoin for a long, long time. I like Bitcoin. It's got great liquidity, but it's where it is because it was the first and it's got a brand, right? It's kind of like Tether. It was the first stable coin and therefore dominates. But the I just don't think you can seriously argue that the Bitcoin blockchain it just holds a candle to what you can do with Ethereum. Now you can argue, yeah, but it's it's safer because it's market cap being higher and it's proof of work, which probably makes a lot of people feel more comfortable. I
It
mean,
does. It does. It genuinely does.
right. You,
No?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, I get it. I mean, I know myself, even though I say the words, you know, Ethereum has more capability and whatnot. But if I were to have all my money in one thing for 10 years, I would feel more comfortable with the the granddaddy, right? But
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
if we are ultimately going to, and this is an open question, if you ask me, if the word we haven't heard a lot of this cycle so far, utility. If utility really is going to become a thing at some point, meaning broad-based usage of these blockchains for their intended purpose, then Ethereum should shine because it's while there's clearly other chains now that uh, also have an intelligent layer built in, smart contract capability. You know, Ethereum has demonstrated for a long time that it's reliable. Uh, Other chains that are younger can't yet make that claim. So I feel like, um, yeah, I think just as I told you in a couple months ago, I thought Bitcoin should be somewhere between 90 and 100. I think Ethereum in this cycle, it's not just that it should outperform as an increase in, you know, as a multiple over Bitcoin. It's not just that it should, it's that it has to. And the reason is pretty simple. Why would you hold Ethereum if a Bitcoin had the same return profile? Right? Like Bitcoin has massively bigger market cap. We can call that it's safer. It has much more liquidity. It has bigger brand name. Why would you hold anything else unless you believe that would perform better
Yeah.
as an increase, right? I mean that so it will be if you and I are talking this time next year, you know, December 2025, and Ethereum has gone up, let's say 5x from its halving price. So from whatever it is today, you know, 3,500 to 10,000, right? So let's just say it goes up 10x, 2,500 or 2,000 at the halving to 10,000. And it's only kept up with Bitcoin. I think that's going to give people pause because they're going to say, oh, maybe Ethereum's rise is over. Maybe, you know, it's sort of where it should be and something else has to uh, uh, combat or compete with Bitcoin.
So the monetary aspect of so I understood why you feel that if people are holding Ethereum, they feel that it's gonna go up more than BTC. And now if you look at the chart, ETH BTC, risk is in risk is not in not risk is has lowered because the probability that Ethereum is gonna go up is higher now because it's been devaluing against Bitcoin for a good 2-3 years now. So I can see Ethereum going up. Where I'm resistant though, and this is just me, is I don't know the monetary policy of Ethereum. That bugs me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a deal breaker at all for what Ethereum can do, or it's just it's it's nothing to worry about too much?
Um, I mean, you can't discount that. I guess I would throw back to you though. What is it about Ethereum that mm, gives you lower confidence in that?
I don't know how many coins there are, so I don't know exact. I'm not when I hold X amount of BTC, I know how much I have versus the whole, supply. But with Ethereum, I don't have that, and that annoys me.
Okay.
It,
That
it
shouldn't bother you. That
but
should
it
not
shouldn't
bother you.
bother me. Maybe exactly that's my
I
question. Why
Yeah,
why shouldn't
no,
it bother
no.
me?
There are reasons maybe you should be bothered, but that is certainly not one. Let me give you a few reasons why that would not be a concern. And I know the Bitcoin maxis, they make this point all the time. I think it's, as a guy who spent 40 years in the finance world, I think it's nonsensical. First of all, um, do you know the supply of gold? Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely not. There's roughly 2% a year of increase in the supply, but where is that supply? And uh, it's not a it's not a it's not a law of physics that it's 2%. We might in 10 years have uh, even better, maybe with AI, better capability to find even more gold. We might increase its supply to 3% growth a year, whatever. There might be gold that's been lost or whatever. Now let's look at, but people still put a lot of faith in gold. Now let's look at publicly traded stocks. Like you say, well, I know how many shares are outstanding of Microsoft or Google, or Facebook or Pfizer, but that's bullshit. First of all, uh, you see the price or you see the supply in financial statements that are backward looking, okay? And the company has the ability always to issue more shares, and they always do, mainly because of acquisitions done with stock and because of people who exercise stock options. So you can say they can do buybacks. Well, Ethereum Foundation could buy back um, Ethereum tokens and torch them the same way that Binance has done over the years, right? And uh, okay, so I look at that and I say, so quantity doesn't matter that much. But I'd also say if you look at the average holder and they say, well, I really need to know how many Ethereum are outstanding or how many shares of a stock are outstanding. Those same people can almost never tell you how many are outstanding. So I don't worry about that. If Ethereum had, let's say, a 15% annual inflation rate, right? And maybe that rate was increasing for some reason. It needed it to entice people to stake. I might say, yeah, I don't like that inflation. Having said that, if you look at fast growing companies over the years after IPO, with all the stock being given to employees and with all of the shares being given to companies they acquire, the share count's always growing. And so, yeah, for me, that's not something I worry about. And in fact, I monitor Ethereum not every day, but probably every couple of weeks. I look at the beacon chain statistics, and I look at what is happening to the token total supply. And because of the reworked tokenomics that I think was done in, what is that, September 2023? I think it was September 2023. It could have been 2022. I'm drawing a blank. Uh, uh,
time is flying.
the burn rate of the tokens, which there's a built-in burn rate now, sometimes exceeds new issue.
Hmm.
So but it's slightly deflationary to flat at the moment, and that's pretty good.
It's so what you're saying is that you would be okay with holding Ethereum long term because you feel it's going up. But would you cycle out of Ethereum into Bitcoin at opportune moments? Do you think
I've never done that. I've never, if I think about it, um, I acquired all my Ethereum with Bitcoin, during the crowd sale. So uh, I would not cycle out. And also Ethereum, and I'm sure you know this, as anybody who's a student of crypto, the correlation among the tokens is dramatically strong, right? Like historically, Ethereum, it's departed a little bit from this recently, but it'll come back. It's been 90% correlated. Most of the tokens are, with the exception of stablecoins, of course, most tokens are very
Right.
correlated. So uh, I think if you own Ethereum, you probably should own it because it's got some utility for you. It still is I think it is the best DeFi chain. There's nothing that even is a distant second, because so many smart contracts have been written, right? The code is very, very, people have a lot of confidence in the code, the DeFi code on Ethereum. So if I think of Bitcoin as kind of a brick, a store of value that is a shiny object for people who are maybe one step removed or not core crypto people, the Wall Street crowd, for instance, they all know Ethereum. I mean, a Bitcoin, but and I know this is strange to people who have been in crypto a while, but I mean, many people, I don't know, I'm going to make it up. Uh, Half of all people on Wall Street have heard of Bitcoin. Some people here might be, if they're listening to this, say, how can that be 100%? Well, I doubt it. But let's say half people on Wall Street know about Bitcoin. I would say 5% then know about Ethereum, um, uh, and that's sort of reflected in the market cap of Ethereum
So we're still
ETF.
super early, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's weird to us that I will listen to sometimes to Wall Street wealth management people, and they'll be talking about this really like secret uh, thing that's an alternative to Bitcoin, and it's called Ethereum. I mean, they're talking about it like it's an undiscovered jewel.
Hmm.
Uh, so what that tells you is, uh, in terms of market uh, understanding of this, we are still very early. And I think, you'll hear Michael Saylor talk about this a lot too. And I think he's right. We are still very early because the vast majority of people don't own any Bitcoin. And uh, vast majority of people don't know what it is. If they have heard of it, they couldn't tell you what it is. And so that's good, right? Because if everybody heard of it and everybody held what they wanted to hold, there wouldn't really be much upside left.
Exactly.
Um, yeah.
So okay, so basically this month, since the election, everything's gone up basically, and XRP has gone to whatever 270, 290, something like that, from 50
Yep.
cents in a couple of days, So it rewarded the soldiers for holding. So I was happy for them. Is it justified? Do you see it going higher? It flipped Tether. I found that to be ridiculous, personally. Is it ridiculous, or what's going on with XRP?
So regarding any token versus Tether, I don't uh I don't think there's any obvious association. Like Tether, of course, it's just a wrapped dollar, right?
Yeah.
So where what you have to pay attention to is think of Tether as the money supply in an economy. So without money supply growth, the unless the velocity of money goes faster and faster and faster, your economy is going to stall. So I think Tether at whatever it is, 110 billion or whatever, is right, is appropriate. It will more than likely double, even triple during the next year and a half to keep up with the market cap growth in crypto overall. But XRP is a curiosity of mine only because it uh, it the holders of XRP have been incredibly patient.
They
All
have.
right. Uh, so um, if you bought XRP prior to the last having in 2020, if you bought it in 2018, right? Maybe 2017, but definitely 2018, you've just broken even after 6 years, right? So um, it went down heavy because uh, I want to say roughly it was at $3, maybe a little less in 2018.
Yeah.
And then it dropped to 14 cents after the SEC lawsuit. And then after all the major US exchanges said, as a result of the lawsuit, we're pulling it from our exchange. So, um, which I thought at that point was a great time to buy it. And I was happy with it because all of the negative news had been squeezed out of it at that point. I mean, you couldn't even buy it in the US. So it was basically being priced that it was going to disappear. Now, uh, uh, I knew lots of XRP maxis who every 6 months would tell me it's going up 10x, it's going up 10x soon. Um, but as you remember, the price of XRP really was waxing and waning along with the its progress in its legal fight. And I think it's reasonable at this point to assume that if a pro crypto person, if Trump appoints a pro crypto person to the SEC, a pro crypto person to the Department of Justice, a pro Treasury Secretary person, that I'm not sure how the litigation will end, probably in some type of settlement, but I think it will end with XRP being traded once again in the United States and it being allowed to exist in the United States. And uh, as a result of that, um, you could imagine, since there should be a heavy weight still on it, since technically a lawsuit, if it were to lose its current litigation, uh, it could go away in the US, uh, meaning shutting down its headquarters and all that. I don't think that's going to happen. So, because that risk still exists, once that risk is removed, um, I could see it doubling from here. You do get, because of its well, here's a question for you, because we were talking about token supply. What's the supply of XRP?
No idea.
There you go.
But that's why I don't hold
Would you like me
XRP.
to tell you, by the way?
I mean, it's a billion. No, you tell me, please. I'm not sure.
You don't know how outrageous this was back in 20, was it 2012, 2013? I can't remember. I think it was 2012. Um, uh, 100 billion supply.
Supply, which is
And
not a lot.
100 billion?
Because if you think of
No.
sats, you have quadrillion sats. That's how
Yeah,
I
but
look at it.
there's 21 billion, there's 21 million Bitcoin, right?
Yes.
There, at the time when XRP was created, and it's a cool idea, but when it was created, it was because it's created before Tether. Tether, of course, I think really replaces it. But
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
uh, XRP, it was a pre-mine. Have you heard this term pre-mine?
Um, N- Not really, no, but I
Right,
think I know
which
what
is
it is.
crazy because that was a term everybody in, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, that was a term we used. Bitcoin
It's not
and its
pre-mined.
clones was proof of work, right? So the coins get distributed or get created as works performed. So XRP was the first like notable um, new token where all the tokens were birthed on day one, and then they sold 9 billion. So there was 91 billion tokens in the treasury. And, they promised not to flood the market with those, but a pre-mine, that term was a scandalous term at the time. It's
Of
like
course.
pre-mine was like a pejorative, right? Now, of course, everything's pre-mined, but at the time it wasn't. But at $1, uh, 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 with 100 billion supply, you'd have a
It's
hundred
very high.
billion market cap, right? And that seemed crazy, which is why I've seen people who I don't think are great with arithmetic
Yeah.
on podcasts and on
Saying it's going to
TikTok.
10 and 12.
Uh, No,
You
I've
don't.
seen three thousand
That's
dollars.
crazy.
Right. I
There's not
mean
a,
that
yeah. There's not
you
even that
get
much money in the world probably to get there.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So uh, I guess you can never put anything past crypto people, but um, it would seem, given its supply, you would think it would it has a natural ceiling. Like with Ethereum people, how high do Ethereum people grasp for whatever the market cap is of Bitcoin, right? So it's like, wow, could it be the same market cap? But most people don't think it could be above that, right? Now, maybe one day a token will exceed Bitcoin.
I hope it
But
won't though.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but I guess we can, it could happen. Um, so XRP, I think, has it's a story right now, right? And crypto people love these narratives and these stories. It's the CEO Brad Garlinghouse met with Donald Trump. Uh, it's hard to imagine that he's meeting with the president and the president's super pro crypto, and the litigation's going to continue, right? So I I think all the litigation will get resolved in a way among all the companies, right? That uh, that is going to be helpful. By the way, been for several years. I've always been curious about how Wall Street looked at the litigation against Coinbase, because that was some serious litigation, right? They had basically two major lawsuits, the SEC, one of which was against their allowing people to earn a yield on their staked Ethereum. They said that was an investment contract. Uh, Coinbase isn't licensed to do that. So that was one. Coinbase, unlike Kraken folded and said, we'll settle. Coinbase said, we're going to fight it. And then there is the major lawsuit that Gary Gensler of the SEC took against Coinbase 4 years ago, which is Coinbase is trading securities, and it named a few tokens it considered securities, and it said you're not licensed by the SEC to be
Trading.
a securities exchange, and therefore what? I mean, the remedy was you can trade Bitcoin and Tether. But if that's all Coinbase did, then its market cap would collapse, right? So I would ask people on Wall Street, what is your thesis about this litigation? Because it seems to me if it goes the wrong way, now you could argue, oh, well, they don't have to shut down. They can just operate outside the United States. But then they're competing with all of the other giant, well-established exchanges outside the US. Coinbase's base is the United States. Um, but the Wall Street guys I talk to would generally say, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that litigation," which is mind-boggling to me. But uh, it does appear now that litigation is not going to deliver them a death blow, and if anything, There may be some change in legislation that allows them to do more than they're already doing, which I think is a great thing. It was also quite strange that many of the large ETF companies were using Coinbase to custody their Bitcoin. But the SEC is suing Coinbase like to shut them down. So I think Gensler's whole attack on crypto was wrong-headed and ridiculous.
I think it was
And
politically,
he
something
had this,
political was going on there.
once the ETF thing happened, he should have tried to wrap up all of the litigation against the established crypto companies, and he didn't. And
So
I
so
fault him
now
for
that
that.
he's resigned,
Yeah,
and
well, he said he's going to resign January 20th.
so he hasn't actually. Oh, I mean, okay, so he's given us
Yeah,
the
he's going to step down,
he's
which
gonna step
he
down.
should do anyway. Let the president pick a new guy, right?
A, do you think he did enough? Let's say, and B, are we definitely in a better position now? Because, like you said, Bitcoin has its own thing. It doesn't need anyone to help it, sort of thing. But I mean, if you put a team around it that is embracing it and crypto in the process, I mean, if you're not exposed to crypto, you're in a big problem at the moment.
I agree with that.
You know, a big problem.
Yes. Uh, and if your question is, well, like, um, what's what comes next? Is that the question?
That's
Like
more or
what?
less the question. Because I mean, I was looking at this market months ago, and I was mainly thinking Bitcoin, because I was seeing Ethereum go down, and like it was confirming my bias against it, let's say, and I've been saying it was going to go down against Bitcoin from zero point zero 0.07, like, and I was happy with that call.
Hmm.
And I was coming into this market thinking, no, it's mainly going to be Bitcoin for me and all this kind of stuff. I can't not acknowledge the fact that
Yeah.
there are better opportunities. They're talking about Doge to 10, $15, that's insane. But can I see it happening? I can right now, and if you look at these other smart contracts, coins and stuff, um, I like them too, So I don't know. So all I was thinking this last week was, wow, okay, at least I have the knowledge of what to do. Someone who doesn't own crypto and is just coming in and seeing all these numbers on the screen has no idea what to do.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And that's, by the way, always been the case when the entry point is usually Tether, sometimes Bitcoin, but you buy the Tether, then you buy Bitcoin, then you start following crypto a little, then gradually you start buying things, and then um, inevitably you wind up with the peanut the squirrel meme coin. So
I like
um,
that these Bitcoins though.
um, I think I think most of the action in this cycle will be in the non-Bitcoin Ethereum area, uh, simply because those stories have been told. It's not like Wall Street's going to launch another set of ETFs. There will be something uh, important that happens when Bitcoin hits 100,000. That's very psychological, that threshold, right? I think uh, I know when I've said to people, well, I think it should be 300, 350 this bull run. A lot of people almost get anxious if they're not holding on to it. Now I tell them that's only a 3x from here. You might be able to do that in 2 weeks in NVIDIA, but uh, but people think about 100. And I know the vast majority, like 99%, and it's probably more of the world, thought Bitcoin was going to die many, many times. The fact that it's hovering near 100,000, I think when it hits 100,000, as much as you and I have already kind of envisioned it, when it hits 100,000, it's going to be earth shattering. This will be the most significant moment, I think, in this crypto cycle will be the 100,000, because It's like the first company, Apple, that hit $1 trillion market cap. It was like, whoa, we're in a new era. And then,
Oh,
in
yeah,
rapid
it's true.
form, many other, well, another five or so then hit a trillion. Well, I think um, you're going to first hear people say, "Oh my God, how did I miss it? I've been, looking at it since it was $500." And then you're going to have people say, "Well, if I miss Bitcoin, what is the one I didn't miss?" I think Bitcoin hitting 100,000 is going to propel Ethereum for that reason. People are going to say, "Well, what is the other one?" And incorrectly, but I think this will happen. They're going to say, "Well, wow, Ethereum is only 3,500. That can go up 30x if to bid 100,000, right?" And while you might say, "No, they're not equal, the supplies are different," um, I can tell you, having been in the market for a long, long time,
Do it.
uh, people look at the dollar price. It's wild how much I've heard people say, "I want to buy this stock." Why? It's only $5,
It's
you know?
unit bias.
Yes.
There was a really good podcast I was listening to, and he brought up two different coins, with dog with hat, and I think it was another one, peanut, I think, or whatever it was. One had, let's say, €1, 120, whatever. So it was more higher. The other was a fraction of a cent. The one which was a fraction of a cent got way more volume.
Well, you mean dollar base volume?
Yes. As in
Oh,
it got
yeah.
way more volatility as well, let's say.
Yeah. And yeah, probably without paying attention to market cap.
Yeah.
That is uh that is not strictly a curiosity of crypto. It happens, as I said, in the stock market. And I'll even go as far to say sophisticated people have said this to me at times. Like, "Oh, it's only $5. I don't want to buy back in the day Netflix. It's at 400. This stock's only at 10." I'm like, what's the market cap, man? Like, one has nothing to do with the other. But what we know about crypto, and again, I'll say something that will probably uh, annoy a lot of the maxis, but with the exception of the stable coins, crypto is valued almost exclusively on sentiment. It's a sentiment driven asset. That's what drives it up and down. There's no published financial statements. There's no management team. There isn't income and marketing expenses and promotions and net income and earnings per share. That's not how it is. It's uh it's a sentiment driven asset, and the power of that is, in a way, therefore it's untethered to anything, which is why Doge, which is, I don't know, it's at 40 cents now. I think I'm going to roughly say it's got a 50 billion market cap. Maybe it's 40, but let's
60.
say 50. It's 60. Okay. So, um, 60 billion. Now, and is it 40 cents right now or is it higher?
40, it's
Uh,
hovering, 44.39.
okay. So say 40. If that thing would go to $4, so a 10x, right? Then that's a $600 billion market cap.
It's a lot.
And you say that just can't be. Well, if you think about it, it does nothing. It was created as a joke. I We may, with crypto, get to a post market cap kind of asset um,
Euphoria.
class where people do pay attention to prices as opposed to market cap, which doesn't seem to have any meaning. Uh, Doge, if I make any argument that's linked to traditional economics, then I would say Doge's brand, its brand value, it is basically what you're valuing there. It's clearly not utility. We can all agree with that, right? It's just a fork of Bitcoin. There's no
Yeah.
utility. So it's just a brand. Now it's, I think, a pretty valuably priced brand. But maybe if you have Elon Musk naming his new department in the U.S. federal government, Doge. Um, uh, Maybe if people strangely wanted to start using it for buying and selling stuff, I don't see that happening, but maybe that could propel it higher. But
I think it has a
whenever
use
we
case personally. I think both
tell me,
Litecoin and Dogecoin have an amazing use case, and that is that by holding them at specific moments in a market, you can make more Bitcoin. And if you look at Litecoin, for example, it's also been murdered. It's like XRP was. If you held it in Litecoin, you really were unlucky because didn't really have anything wrong with it. Just fell out of love with it. But it's only last I checked, it's probably higher now. It was like 5, 6, 7 billion, which is nothing. That is nothing.
not when you consider that Litecoin was the second largest market cap, I think, up
And
until
then ETF,
2017.
ETF in so Litecoin, what's cool about it is it started in 2013, and from 2013 to 2014 plus some months, so about 16, 17 months, it was at 2 cents to 7 cents, 2 cents to 10 cents. Then in 1 month it flew up to 86 cents. In the other month it flew up to 4 euros.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me that I hold Doge and I hold Litecoin to make more Bitcoin. So that's a use case to me. It's an easy one to
Yeah,
understand.
I can see why you would say that. Um, uh, I would also say that uh, it's a bizarre thing because in 2019, the really the entire development team that was working for the foundation and you know uh, overseeing Litecoin left because they ran out of money.
Yeah.
And uh, it was so strange to me. There's all these other tokens that had uh, dedicated teams still working on it, and it was abandoned.
Charlie Lee.
Charlie Lee, as you remember, in 20 December 2017, kind of famously said, selling all my Litecoin and I'm going to go do something else. And he did. And so, the kind of the founder left. And then by 2019, the treasury really didn't have much money. So those guys who were supporting it all left. And it was this abandoned thing. The fact that it is still traded, that people still think of it as something is wild. But
It's wild,
that
no? It is
it's
wild.
wild. Yeah, because it's the name, right? It's just the name, and it's got a brand as a result.
It's the
And that,
promise as well,
yeah, yeah,
I would
uh,
say.
yeah. Uh, it is one of the things I think, if somebody said to me, William, what is it about crypto that uh the many people who don't understand, it's this point that I'm making, which is it's um it's virtually all traded on sentiment. And 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 you and I should pay attention to this in 2025. You remember the last bull market. I mean, the word utility was like always in every sentence about crypto. We have better utility, and look at all the things we can do. I'm not hearing that much this time.
The
I don't know about
narrative
you.
is not, no, no. So yeah, you're completely right. So the narrative this time round for me, which I collected from my pool of people I listened to, was a store of value. So people wanted store of value coins and proof of work coins. And meme coins were in love at the moment with
Yeah.
people. It's like these other coins came after. You know what I mean? And that's why Ethereum, and I think it has to do with Ethereum basically underperforming against BTC for so long.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I mean, we could go so many directions in this, but when I think about like the venture capitalists, right? So Bitcoin, our blockchain was, from my vantage point, was the first major technology, global technology platform that Silicon Valley VCs totally missed. There were a few, right? A few, but virtually none. It was also the first globally distributed technology platform where Silicon Valley was, from a development standpoint, was irrelevant. Uh, uh, there were people around the entire world who were looking at this open source software movement and building on it. And I thought, as a VC, I thought that was amazing. I thought it was great. The VCs really shunned it. And if you were to ask, as I did many times, because I was a VC for a long time, they would always ask me, like, what is this scammy stuff and why are you doing anything with it? And generally, the VCs would say, but it has no utility. No one does anything with it. It's like it's just being traded back and forth, as though trading was not a utility, right? I mean, that to
Exactly.
me was a huge utility. But it was only in really the 2020, 2021 cycle where they piled in. And then, of course, famously invested in things like FTX and, lost a shitload of money. But um, they were the ones who really wanted to hear the utility story. And I think even VCs in Silicon Valley now, they've kind of gone mum on that, because I think they finally realized, oh, it's not about like the absolute utility in a lot of cases. It's about making directional bets. I think that's what we've kind of learned. So maybe this cycle won't be about utility. We'll see what it is. Um, I think you and I talked about this briefly before, which is I can chart every year since basically like 2011 and show you how each year in the blockchain world, there was a new technical development that drove interest and a lot of application growth. And it kept increasing, in fact, till it hit its crescendo in like 2020, 2021, where you had this like, trifecta of DeFi initially,
NFTs,
and then
IC,
NFTs, and then
IOU is that ICU,
metaverse, right? It was like
metaverse.
boom, boom, boom.
Mm.
Um, 2021 was, we'll call that the end point, was kind of the last year where, from my view, a substantial new development was introduced to blockchain. You could call a baby development in 2023 was
Meme
uh,
coins.
I would say no. I would say restaking staked tokens. I would say restaking staked tokens, eigenlayer, was clever. It was a clever development, but it's really a subcategory of DeFi, right? So it's clever, and it could draw people into, oh, I can make more with what I already have. But I mean, meme coins have been around since
Since
freaking
Dogecoin.
name coin and then Doge.
True.
I I don't think you can. I think meme coins are having this ascendant moment, but I don't think that's not a new innovation. I
No,
mean, you could argue that uh, during the ICO bubble of 2017, some of those, there were several 100,000 coins minted during that time. And most of those, they were so lame, you would probably call them meme coins. So now meme coins have clearly really taken off this cycle, but uh, I, I personally don't call that a new development, a new innovation. Having said that, I it appears at this point in time, December 2024, that there is going to be no new innovation that gets introduced in 2025 that really takes blockchain by storm. And that as a result, the biggest kind of hype area will wind up being meme coins. Uh, Now, this will be the first cycle, if this happens, where um, a major new innovation was not part of that bull market run. I don't know what that means.
well, I was going to
Uh,
ask you, what do you make from that?
So I can tell you my first observation, which I feel good about. When my partner and I decided to go all in crypto, whatever, 10, more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we uh,
Well done for that.
we we uh, we had a playbook, right? And I helped basically write this playbook. And remember, I had started with a couple of other guys, the first consumer focused, consumer internet focused venture fund in the mid 90s. And from that experience, I developed a perspective of what happens when a new technology platform gets introduced. Now it's kind of taken as a an article of faith, and most everybody understands this. First, you build an infrastructure, then you start to build an application layer, then you have, call it a data layer, um, monitoring layer, whatever. Intermediaries start to take hold. And so when we saw Bitcoin and then blockchain in uh, uh, the early days, I said to my partner, I I actually think I've got a playbook for us, the same playbook that worked in the dawn of the internet. Infrastructure, application, data. So that's how we went about it. And our playbook, we thought we would roll out in about 4 years. And our last kind of hurrah was 2020, 2021. And I remember thinking, well, so it took a lot longer to roll out all of the things we wanted to do. But in addition, um, I said to him, that was our big set of ideas. Uh, the low-lying fruit is how I thought about it. These were to me the obvious things. There really was nothing that happened through 2021 that we hadn't thought that should happen. We were just wrong on timing in some cases. And I thought, okay, now someone else is going to step up and they're going to roll stuff out. Um, what I think has happened is the easy stuff has been done. I think the obvious stuff has been done. The obvious big ideas. Now, they weren't obvious to everybody, but to people who were students of this, it was like, yeah, that should happen. And so we're on a different time frame now. And this always happens with enormous new technology developments. The easy stuff by the ambitious, smart entrepreneurs, they roll out the easy stuff, the stuff you just got to do. And then after the easy stuff is done, innovation becomes harder,
I
right?
thought meme coins was a lazy one, to be honest. Lazy
Lazy,
one,
right?
but it's easy to understand and it's funny. And I guess after all this thing, let's laugh a bit. Isn't that bad?
You can actually look at meme coins, and they are the perfect illustration of my point that to understand crypto, you have to understand that not true of stable coins. Those are like a built-in utility case. But for virtually everything else, the value, the market cap of the token is unrelated to the utility it's providing. This has been consistent, consistent throughout. For those people who are like Solana, when Sam Bankman was stealing money from FTX and putting billions into Solana wasn't even working. It was crashing every day, right? So utility has not been a core attribute of the market cap. And if you want to take the kind of the perfect distillation of that, you would say meme coins, where literally they don't even pretend to have utility. It's just a fun, gimmicky thing. And so that will be a very powerful thing, I think, in this cycle, because what happens is once people get a certain amount of of uh, of money in their pocket. This really happened in 2017 when Ethereum went from a few dollars to $400. What did people do with their Ethereum? They started buying ICOs. They started buying
Speculating
new
further.
tokens, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so um, I think meme coins, as all of these chains start to go up more, people are going to want to do something with what they have, and the meme coin phenomenon will go up. But having said that, we do need, there are, blockchains are the worst possible way to do virtually anything. I've said that many times. Having said that, what it does well, it has no equal to. There's nothing else you can do to, let's say, get a peer to peer, globally distributed stablecoin. There's no other way to do that other than a blockchain. Blockchains are remarkable. Um,
Which is why
but
it's going to 300,000.
yes,
Yeah.
but having said that, uh, I would like to see some of the energy that's going into meme coin nonsense go to, hey guys, these are basically computers. Every smart contract is just a little computer. Why don't we build more? Um, I understand there's always an arc with a technology. I hope, and this is more hope than it is a prediction. I hope uh, the uh, the blockchain development cycle is still in its early stages. I um, I
Wow. So
don't want it to.
you think there could be like, is it brain drain, the word, where we don't know what to build anymore?
I think what it is there's, and this is not unique to blockchain, so I'm not
Exactly.
criticizing
Yeah.
blockchain, but I do think there is a look at venture capitalists. Okay, when I started in VC, yes, it was internet, whatever, but it was about building things basically from scratch. A lot of work in semiconductors and in telecom hardware systems and in giant enterprise software systems. And uh, venture capitalists are capitalists first, and eventually, what they realized is they could invest in a software development thing or a hardware thing, and it could take 10 years and $200 million, and they could make 5x on their money. Or they could invest in two random guys who have an idea about an app, give them $5 million,
See what they
and
do.
it's worth $1 billion, and it takes 1 year. So they're capitalists. So they naturally said, I don't want to do any work. In fact, VCs, as I don't know how much your audience understands this, but VCs got to a point where they also didn't want to do venture capital, basically. They didn't want to put any money in a startup. The first thing they'd say is, well, what does your product look like? What's the traction? How well can you define the market? That would have been a series D when when I was younger. And now that was considered an A round.
Mm.
And I get it. They were like, why should we work hard if we can it's like being a lion in the zoo. There will come a point when the zookeeper throws you a big pile of meat. If it doesn't land in front of your nose, you don't even bother to eat it because you don't want to get up and move to the corner to eat it. That's how VCs became. And I think crypto people, there probably are some who are like, I could go build this new chain and the new consensus. When's the last time we've had a new consensus mechanism? Probably not really since 2020. Um, I think they all said, screw it, I'll just do a meme token. It would be nice to get back to real innovation, but I do understand that innovation has to be rewarded. But if we go through this whole cycle and there is nothing really noteworthy on the new development path, and if Bitcoin does hit 300,000, everything goes up, maybe we can say, all right, maybe it doesn't need to have innovation anymore. It's just sentiment. But for the benefit of all of us who like new technology, I would like more effort to be put into innovation, and that needs to be rewarded. And it takes time, but there's probably somebody who's going to listen to this who's like, "No, I'm building that," but we just haven't seen it yet.
William, you always have so many amazing insights into everything. I really enjoy listening to everything you have to say. Um, okay, so I wanted to actually also ask about the strengthening of the dollar. But I thought like maybe also just to round off this call, what's the next play for the person holding a portfolio right now? How would you strategize this next phase of the bull
Okay.
market in 2025?
Uh, Obviously, I've thought a lot about that. So, uh, I guess I would say, uh, I think even I heard Michael Saylor say this recently, and I'm glad he did. I used to say, don't even consider buying Bitcoin or another token unless you have a 5 year hold period. And, or I should say, an ability to hold it for 5 years. It doesn't mean you have to hold it for 5 years, but just in case. And by the way, it turned out that wasn't enough for XRP. You needed to hold it for 6 years to get
It's
back,
true.
right? Saylor said 10 years. That's probably safe. So, um,
He says four.
yeah, but he also says, uh, I will bet my life that if you buy, now he talks about Bitcoin, but they're all correlated. If you hold Bitcoin for 10 years from this point, you will have made money, right? And so I haven't heard him mention four, but that's interesting because I say five. Five is actually, he's right about the fact that historically, any 4 year period in Bitcoin, you were up,
You were
right?
up.
Or you had an opportunity, I should say, during your holding period to have sold it for more than you bought it. Um, and so I would say to people, if you are holding some crypto, whatever that is, and let's assume you're not a psycho like me who has most of his wealth in crypto. Let's assume you're more normal. You've got 1% to 5%, right? Um, I would say understand that this moves in cycles. This is the point I make always when I talk to people considering it, particularly Wall Street people. And the reality is, all asset classes have cycles. They all do. But the cycles sometimes are so long, we forget them. But as a venture capitalist, I can tell you, I always was aware of the IPO cycle. That cycle ran between 6 months and 18 months. In my life, it never lasted longer than 18 months, and it was as short as six. Once the market became open to IPOs, you had between 6 and 18 months to go public, or the door was shut, and it was just barred shut. Well, uh, things like commodities, copper is a famous one. Copper has a cycle, which usually goes along with the credit cycle in the economy, and stocks have a cycle. Every so often, the credit cycle retracts, stocks go down, and so forth. But all these other asset classes, the rise is less than crypto and the fall is less than crypto. So crypto is much more volatile. So what I would say is it's just like other asset classes, only faster and steeper, both up and down. Therefore, whatever you hold here should be in your risky allocation budget. And you never want to be in a position where if it went down below a certain amount, you would need to sell.
Yes.
So, therefore, be aware in the next 3 years. Um, yeah, I think I'll say that in the next 3 years, Bitcoin will be substantially lower than it is today.
Than it is today.
Yes. In
Today
the
is
next,
95, 96.
yes. In the next 3 years, Bitcoin will also be many multiples of where it is today. So in this next 3 years, it will be lower than it is. And I'm not talking 1,000, but maybe as much as 20,000 lower. And it will be maybe 5x higher. If you need to have that money in the next 3 years, you shouldn't have the money in crypto at all. But if you can hold it until 2030 or whatever, I wouldn't worry so much. So my advice would be don't freaking panic. In fact, it might be best to buy it and then kind of look at it in 2030. That would be my advice. And what's uh, uh, crazy, as you know, is Jesus Christ. As soon as it starts a run, and this is going to be amplified when Bitcoin hits 100,000, everyone's going to rush in. I believe half those people are going to lose their money. Not all of it, but some, because they're going to ride it up and then it's going to go back and
They'll
then
panic.
they're going to sell when they get into a negative position. And it's
Okay.
dumb.
Okay, so that, let's say, is advice for the entry. But if you're a seasoned holder, let's say, and you have your hodl stack, which you actually don't want to part with until it reaches 1 million, which is doing well, and you have your trading stack. Now, the trading stack technically should finish all in USD at the
Yeah.
highs. How
Yeah.
are you layering out as a VC? Like,
And
do
I,
you
yeah.
wait
And I
for the
will say,
200 or the 320, or
yeah, I will first say, of course, I have a playbook, but I'll first say I don't trade in the sense that most people would think about it. I don't go in a token because I think there's an arbitrage, right? I've never done that. I like it, I buy it. When news changes and I don't like it anymore, I'll sell it. So I treat it more like a traditional asset. Um, it's important, and this can't be stressed enough for stocks or real estate or crypto. Never buy anything without having an entry price where you have decided it's reasonable. That means you have to have been following it for a while.
Mhm.
And as you know, once you follow something for a while, you really start to understand it, right? You can say,
Capture the
it's a
wave?
little weak,
Yeah.
right? It's an interesting thing. And for people who aren't in crypto, if you follow the housing market, you know, oh, prices are weak, prices are strong because you've been following it. So I would say to people, what you should do is have an entry price where you're like, I'm happy to buy it. By the way, I think the reason there's been a lot of like uh, rushing in from 90 to 98, whatever it's been, 1,000 for Bitcoin, is because people psychologically wanted to say they had it before it hit 100. All right.
Mm.
And you also have to have a price at which you would start to reduce your position.
Yes, that's the one.
This is where most people mess up. Most people mess up here. And it takes iron discipline, I know. And by the way, everything I'm saying, I've done the opposite
Opposite.
at times. All lessons that I have written in stone have also been written in blood. They're the things I was told by some old guy like me, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, you're stupid, I'm smart. And then I lost my ass. And then I went back and said, why did I do that? So um, having an exit price is so important to just, it's literally, I think it is the most important thing about investing. At what price is it fully valued and where you could earn better returns somewhere else? That's the price you should be taking your position back. Now, I have something, the Quigley rule. The Quigley rule is once you buy a token, you never fully depart with it. I've got a lot of reasons. I won't go into them here. But what I do is I always leave a stub amount. It could be 30%, could be 20%, could be 5%, could be 1%.
To stroke the
Always.
emotion, to participate
Yes.
in it going up.
Also, because there was a reason I saw it. Out of all the thousands of things I could have put my money into, I put my money into that. I learned about it. I tracked it. That knowledge I don't want to be permanently wasted. So I like to sell most of what I have when I decide to get out, but I keep a stub. One, because I know a lot about it and I want to still follow it. And two, because I could be wrong. I
Ah,
could be wrong. And so keep a stub. You did a lot of work to track this thing. You're aware of it. Once you sell all of it, you can never benefit from that knowledge again.
it's true.
So keep a stub, unless you think it's a fraud or something. Keep a stub and have an exit price. I guarantee you, most people going into this bull market have never done that work.
So if
They
you
don't
if
have an
your
exit
if your
price.
trading account is one Bitcoin and it's 300, it's 150,000.
Yep.
How are you layering out of that?
Right. So all the things I've thought about. Um, let's say you think it's going to go to 350,000, right? By the way, there's two triggers. I told you the first one, price, right? The
Time.
second is time.
Yeah.
You have to look at time because you're in a cycle. So where are you in the cycle? So I would have both my estimates of how long I think a cycle is going to last and what kind of exposure I want to have when we hit that recession. And then I would want to also have a price. Now it gets obviously we've tested a lot of scenarios, my partners and I. What happens in January if Bitcoin hits 350,000?
Exactly. Quick. But you keep it
Right.
riding.
I would not.
You would not itself.
I would not. What I would do is when I say you reduce your position, it doesn't mean sell all. It means reduce your position. So I would probably start reducing my position
Yes.
because there's only one reason you wouldn't. And this happens, but it's rare. Let's say we're talking about a stock and you're like, I like NVIDIA because I'm a video gamer and they got the best graphic acceleration cards and everybody has them and blah, blah, blah. And it's worth 300 million market cap, whatever that is, and we'll say $50. And then it hits 50, gets up to 50, and you're like, okay, time to get out. But right before it hits 50, they announced that AI is going to be a giant motivator for their stock price. Well, now you have see a different set of information. So if Bitcoin hit 350 in January, but you also simultaneously heard that the US government had decided to hold 2 trillion of Bitcoin and they would acquire that over the next 5 years. That is a substantial, material, important piece of information that would affect what I thought that the value of Bitcoin should be. But absent that, you wouldn't. And this therefore needs to be stated. If it's not, it's kind of implicit. When you have an exit price, you have a rationale for that exit price.
Yeah, exactly.
You say, for instance, I don't think in this bull market cycle that Bitcoin can be worth more than 1/3 of the global supply of gold. Gold is worth 18 trillion. I think Bitcoin can be worth around 6 trillion, whatever, 1/3. And that's about 300,000, whatever. If instead, though, the US and a couple of other countries say, we're going to start shifting out of our reserve assets of gold and buy Bitcoin, not just talk about it, but do it, I would say, well, maybe it can be worth half the price of gold. In that case, it's 500,000,
So you need
right?
to adjust, basically.
Yeah. So
On the
what you
fly.
need to do is you need to write down your thesis.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You need, because you forget in the moment, you forget, right? So you write down and then you have discipline and you say, I wanted to start to reduce my position in Bitcoin when it hits 275,000. I'm going to start selling, 20% each month or whatever you're going to do. That's based on the fact that I think, the bull run will end in 2025, that all the good news has already been priced into it, and there's been no substantial problems, and there's nothing material new in 2025 that has changed my outlook for where this can be. Now, that's what you do. If there is something new, maybe you hold longer and you sell it at a less and less at a later date. But if you don't write it down, I guarantee you, you're going to have your head's going to be filled with a lot of useless day-to-day information, which is what kills traders.
Yeah, that's good. That I like a lot. It makes sense.
I do, and I'll just say this, which is not a secret. Um, there's enough smart people in crypto now to understand the cycle aspect. 18 months post halvening happened in April. 18 months after would be October, November 2025. That's when the bull market cycle will start to
Should end.
wane. It'll hit a low in August 2027.
Could I just
If
ask a
you,
question before? So if people are aware of the cycle
yeah,
and you're basically playing against those players that are trying to
right.
outsmart you selling October, November, does that mean that it's likely to be extended more than it is likely to be to be reduced time-wise? If
You
you
and
had to
I,
flip a
y-
coin, would you say it
y-
would land bang in the middle, or would you say it actually extends?
if I'm looking at it strictly logically, I would say, and I'm not looking at it this way, but if I were to say, based on the stuff I told you, when will the cycle really peter out? It would be summer 2025. Because some people would say, I know when it ends, I'm going to leave the club before the lights come on. And some other people say, I know those people are leaving before the lights come on. So I'm leaving at last call and blah, 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 blah. So what you could have is a chain reaction. Now, if you play this through, Monte Carlo it seems to just offset because people are exiting, which the price goes down, but then other people are like, wow, it's the party's not over. I want to buy
Exactly.
it.
Uh,
So honestly, I've game theoried this a lot. I think I get to the pros and the cons lead me to end of 2025, the cycle's over. But again, if at a can you keep that? Oh, sorry, can you keep that? Sorry, yeah, because that echo. Um, if you uh, if you wind up uh, looking at what the smartest people will do, right? The smartest people might say, I've seen this story before. I am going to reduce my position before that happens. But I so I go round in circles on this, and this is why. Is there an example we can follow where this has happened outside of crypto? And the answer is absolutely.
there is.
Now,
You're saying there is.
absolutely, because every single asset class goes through the exact same thing. Remember, I told you all asset
Yeah,
classes have
yeah.
cycles?
Cycles.
There's a credit cycle, there's an IPO cycle, there's a stock market cycle, there's a real estate cycle, there's a commodity cycle. Oh, wait a minute. Let's talk about the stock cycle. Like, we go up a certain amount, then because of credit expansion, government policy, quantitative easing, getting us out of the previous recession. Eventually, inflation starts to hit, asset valuations get ahead of themselves, historical multiples start to go. We reach those and we go higher. Cautious people start to go back. That's a cascading effect. Uh, Quantitative easing ends, and we get into another recession and valuations collapse. So my question to old Wall Street guys was, uh, do people not understand there's a cycle in your markets? And they said, yes, they understand it. And I said, okay, but if that's the case, you would almost think it would just sort of gradually subdue then, because you think it's going to end in December. So you want to get out before that, November. I know you're going to get out in November. So I
Remember.
get out in October and a
Yeah.
cascade, right?
Yeah.
So here is the smart money's take on what I just said. What they say is, yeah, that's all true. But you forget one thing. The markets are propelled by greed and speculation, and people lose sense of
Exactly.
everything.
We,
And
we
because,
spoke about this last time.
yes, and because it's not illogical, because asset managers are paid based on relative performance, leaving the party early and being punished for that because the party went on a few hours longer means relatively you look worse. So
Exactly.
money flows out of you to the other guys. The contrast to that is you stay to the end, you go down, but you go down with everybody else.
Everybody else.
So relatively, you're no worse. As a result of that, their argument is that something will trigger a collapse in commodities and housing and stocks, whatever it is. But um, it generally is almost like you're grabbing the punch bowl and the claws are still hanging on because no one wants to be the first guy to exit. And I've lived through this. In 1996, Alan Greenspan, then the Federal Reserve Chairman, uh, said
Famous quote,
these
no?
famous words. He
Yeah.
said there was an irrational exuberance in the stock market. This was 1996. This was just as the internet bubble was starting to go,
Yeah.
just as it was starting to go. And there were people who pulled back in 1996. And the market was going gangbusters for 4 years after that. And so trying to predict when the high is going to be hit is a very dangerous game because of this relative performance penalty you have. If you stay and everybody collapses, you all failed, you don't stand out. But if everybody else does well and you don't do as well, in bull market cycles, uh, most investors and people who invest in money managers, they don't want to hear that their money was safer with you. They want to hear that you captured the upside. And so there's this. We do have now 100+ crypto investment funds of significant size, right? Those crypto investment funds are in this position I told you about. They can't all pull out of the market in June
Exactly.
and say, well, everything's safe, because people are going to say, I would have been better off holding Bitcoin or Ethereum directly. You missed out on half of the upside. You see?
So it's going the distance, basically. Like your
You
odds are
do.
that
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You got to go the distance.
it should go the distance, and probably there'll be an opportunity to get a very early sell. So like inauguration day, it tops for a month or two, let's say, we correct for a month or two, and you sell that top. Let's say Bitcoin panics to 180, 190. You take
Mm-hmm.
40, 50% out, zero point 0.5 of a Bitcoin, and you wait back for 100K, and then you ride that to 300.
I think that's a good, as a trader. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. We know that it's not going straight up from
No,
January to December 2025. It's not,
that's not.
right? Nothing does. This is why you must have, uh, you must know why you're in it, what causes you to be exposed to this asset class, and at what price you would be comfortable getting out, but also at what price you should accumulate a position,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the looking at the sentiment indicators, right? This, if we do hit let's say Trump imposed a bunch of tariffs, and uh, and I don't think this is going to happen, but he imposed a bunch of tariffs, and the global economy contracted, and and U.S. including, and there was a rush to security, to safer assets. Uh, Now that Wall Street has such a influence on Bitcoin prices, they would dump Bitcoin, and what we would likely see is the rest of the coins drop, and that could be a premature end to a Bitcoin rally. It could happen, or it could be that Trump reverses his position and says, okay, I see what's happening. We're going to get rid of those. Market gets bullish again, right? The Fed cuts rates more, which causes things to go up. So it's a good point. You should be prepared to take some of your position off in 2025, but to redeploy it
Yes, definitely.
relatively quickly.
Yes.
That's true.
That at least that's what I think I'm gonna do. That's what I think I'm gonna do. I think we'll
I
have.
think it's hard for me to criticize that, because I think that's been a very winning hand. It's been a winning hand if you have the discipline, right?
I
What's
mean,
painful is when you reduce your position, let's say 25% or 50%, and then it doubles from the point at which
yes,
you reduce your position.
yeah, but that's why
And
you get
then,
selfish with where you're selling.
yes, and I should mention this before we go. One of the great life lessons I've seen about investing um, where, we talk about how emotion can really ruin you, right? And it does. But where in particular the emotion ruins you. And I've seen this in the most extreme cases. When when Ethereum was at 30 cents, dropped to 15 or whatever, went up to 76 cents, right? There were people who saw it go from 30 cents to 15 cents and then still didn't own it, and then go from 15 to 75, 76 cents. And I said to them, hey, you should get in, right? I mean, this thing had its near death and now it's going. And they're like, I will get in when it goes back to 30 cents. How many times have you seen this?
Yeah.
Oh, Bitcoin. I can't tell you it just since the happening. I told people it's gonna contract in August, September. It did. And I'm like, now's the time to go. When it was at 65, 66, they were like, I should have bought it at 55. I should have bought it at 54. I should have bought it at 50. Then it drops to 49. And I'm like, what's your position? Well, I'm going to wait until it drops to 35. And so that's just chasing your tail. So what the people who, and I know many of them, people who didn't buy Ethereum at the crowd sale, uh, when it was 30 cents, they're like, let me see, drop, goes up to 75, said, I'll wait till it goes to 30. That day never came. Then it hit $1 and then 10 and then 40 and 400 and then 4,800. And the lowest it's been since, well, I guess in March 2028,
75 it went to.
it hit $85.
75.
But brief. And by the
Brief,
way,
5 seconds only.
and the volume was low,
Yeah.
meaning people weren't buying a lot. And it was stayed forever at 200. And you have to, as someone who's trying to make something for your risk, you have to abandon the notion of what it was previously. You have to look at it from this point on. No one would buy a house in the United States if they anchored to the housing prices of 1970. Nobody would buy a house.
Exactly.
And yet and you don't normally see this with housing, but you absolutely see it with stocks and you see it with crypto. So anyone who's stayed this long in the podcast, hopefully you remember that. What you're talking about doing, which is, hey, I'm going to sell some position when I'm happy with a price in 2025, and then wait for the pullback and then maybe load up. But you have to be prepared for it never going to that pullback point, and therefore you've missed it. And it feels good when you sell a position and realize a gain. It feels shitty when you have to buy in at a multiple of that original exit.
True.
And yet, I do also know people who missed Ethereum at multiple times and then finally got in at 400. And you know what? Right now they feel great.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I truly believe crypto, like everything else in investing, is extremely difficult. I think most people are not constitutionally programmed to do it. I think it gives people tons of anxiety, which is why it's probably best not to trade, but to establish entry points, set it, forget it.
Amazing. William, great chat. This was a really good one. And I
Yeah,
learned
and
a lot I learned.
let's touch base in maybe end of Q1.
Yes, and the Q1's a good one.
Let me ask you, so Ethereum and Bitcoin, end of Q1 2025, what is your estimate?
I think that Bitcoin's, so the power law always got me biased towards a high of 200 and maybe 290. The power law made me biased towards that. So
In Q1.
in at the end, or in
Okay, okay,
the
okay.
high.
Got it,
So
got it.
I'm gonna go with, let's say, a one, anywhere between Bitcoin going to one, let's say 60, 180, in a euphoric move where they've just announced something to do with their buying 1 million coins or whatever over the course. And I think that will push it up to 160, maybe, or 140 or 180. I don't know. And then I think we should have a pullback back down to 100. And then we drag along for 100 because that's painful. Why? Because if I bought in at 120, 140, and it's gone up to 180, I'm really happy. And now it's back down to 100, I'm in pain, which is basically what I think the market likes to do for a long period of time. And then 2 months, and we'll go to 400.
Okay, that's very
Ethereum, I don't
plausible.
have an opinion because I don't track it,
Well, let
unfortunately.
me say this. Do you think Ethereum will be substantially lower in March or substantially higher? If you had to pick one of those.
I think it's going to be higher, much higher,
Okay.
but
Okay.
in euro, obviously. In BTC terms, can it get back to 0.05 by January? If it can, that's good. If it can get to
Okay.
0.06, that's incredible. That's a great trade, actually.
So I will, since I asked you, I will go. I think Bitcoin, I got to, I'll just take a wild guess. It'll exceed 100,000 sometime in, well, if it doesn't hit it by December 15, then it won't hit 100,000 in December, but it will hit it in January. Once it hits 100,000, it will take no more than 4 months for it to hit 200,000.
Mm.
I'm very confident of that. And the reason I'm confident of that, even though it sounds crazy, is because it took 3.5 months to double from August to November. And so I think once it hits 100,000, that will be so
Yeah, it
psychologically
would.
jarring to people who are not in it that it will hit 200 within 4 months, and Ethereum will do roughly equal to that. So Ethereum will also roughly double. So let's say I'll
BTC,
say
ETH, how do you see that? What's the ratio?
what's it currently? Because it's
Zero,
peaked at 5%.
0.0363738, something like that.
Yeah. So maybe 4.5.
4.5, yeah. I would say
Yeah.
that's a good target for it. More than that is a
Yeah.
lot. That's why I said
Yeah.
0.05 is a lot to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely is. There are no flipping in this cycle.
No flipping
Um,
in. It's like,
and and yeah, I have uh that's why I kind of want it to hit 100 because I know 4 months later it'll be two. So that will be 4.2 trillion market cap, be um 20 what is that? Uh, 30, 15% of gold or
50%
so.
of your, it makes sense. I personally think it goes to 180, 200 and back down to 100 because in 2013 it did something similar. It went up to 270 or 260 and then went back to 70 and it stayed at 70 all year, 70, 80, 70, 80. And this is pre 2013. Sorry,
Mm,
before it got to a
mm.
thousand. Pre 2013, it was hover, it went up to 200, back down, and stayed at 70, 80, 90. And then in 2 months, it started to go up to 1,300, 1,100.
Yeah, yeah, that would happen. And yeah, and 4.2
And
trillion
the
would
whole
be a
year
current
can be is the bull market over, you know? That's the
right.
whole thing.
And 4.2 trillion in the current price of gold could also go up, would be about 24%. So 23, 24%. So that that sounds pretty darn impressive to me. I mean, like think about for a second. The the most precious asset of mankind for 10,000 years, uh, like it's part of our DNA. And if Bitcoin hits 200,000, uh, Bitcoin will be worth 25% of the global gold supply. It's just incredible. Unless, of course, gold also goes up, and it might. But uh, uh, I think a long term goal for people should be Bitcoin, in meaning the next 10 years, should be 50% the price of gold.
50%.
50% the value, the market cap of Bitcoin should be half the market cap of gold. I think that's a, now other people think it should be a multiple, but I think you're safe at half.
I'll just show this. I'm
Yeah.
just sharing my screen now. This is an
Yeah.
article I update. And back when we were at 76, I was trying to see, okay, what's gonna happen. So I took the 2013 cycle fractal and I put it over and I said, we go up to 125K in the first peak, maybe 154, and then back down, and we hover all the way, and then it spikes, in September, October,
Mm,
November.
mm,
And this to
mm,
me was max pain.
mm.
It didn't really
Four, what
pan
is
out
that?
like this so far.
423,
Sorry?
423,000.
Sorry?
That's 423,000. I can't see it too.
Yeah, 423
And that's what date?
in between
Okay.
October.
That's possible.
It's crazy because everyone is saying, it's finished. I don't think it will go down this low, back to 76. Fair enough. But if we go to 200, we can come back down to 100 and stay at the
Right.
125 level. It's still max pain if you bought at 140 because you're off, you're down. You have 8 months to say, am I a sucker? Am I gonna sell? And then you sell, and then it goes up.
And that would be, yeah, that would be
Here it is. Look, in
450.
2013, Bitcoin first hit 259 in April. Correct, in April, in fact, it coincides with your 4 months. Corrected down to 70 range, then resumed its uptrend, reaching 1,100 by December. So it was in 2013, all.
Yeah. And at that point, 400 roughly, 450, it is half the market cap of gold.
So it makes sense.
So if it hit half the market cap of gold, I don't expect it to. I think it'll be more like 30%, 35%. But if it hit half this cycle, the next cycle it could surpass, which would be wild. And then you have it going down in your, I don't know how far you forecasted that out. You have the low in the next cycle of, it's got to be it's got to be above the high of the last cycle for sure. But what are you thinking?
Right now, it's really impossible to say,
Yeah,
but
I guess. Yeah.
everyone thinks it's mimicking 2021. And I don't think it's mimicking 2021 because 2021, we didn't really. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Now I
Yeah,
can say it. Yeah.
this is how I see it. Um, we have so much consolidation up here. It's like
Mm-hmm.
foundation to go up. We didn't have that over here, and
Right.
we didn't have that. This is not the. I have the full chart over here. Over here. So in 2013, we hung around at the top. I mean, at the close to the all-time high, but not that much. Nothing like this. So this tells me we're never going down here ever again, because there's a lot of support. Here, it doesn't look like that to me, So 2017 maybe, but 2013 makes a lot more sense to me because it makes, and you had a bit of consolidation here, 12, 13, and like we have the reason why I think it's going up. So here I gave three possible things. This is 790, this is 375, and this is 267.
Mm.
I'll remove the log. um I think it can go up, but then I think it can go down because people like me will sell, because if it goes to 200, it's not going to stay there. Like if anything, this foundation to me taught me that, listen, if you sold here, okay, and you just held, and then you just waited for you just went on holiday basically, and you bought back when it showed you it was going to go up, you would have done very well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
And
I
that
think
was basically my thesis for post halvening through October was it was going to be a couple of pullbacks, but pretty much dead money.
pretty much dead money, exactly. I can show you some of my trades. Yeah. So for example, here I took some profit at 82, because initially my
Mm.
fractals told me 82 and maybe we'll come back down. And then when I saw it go up a little bit here and we started producing this upward triangle, I bought in again. So like what you were saying
Oh,
is it's shit to buy here and have to buy again on top. But I mean 5%, I'm willing to take a 5% hit to know I can
5%
get
is totally
15%
respectable.
to the
Yeah.
downside.
Because you were, yeah, because you have to factor in the fact that you also were laying off risk, right? So
Exactly. And
you bought an insurance policy.
I'm actually training the muscle to sell as well. Um,
Ah,
so then I was happy with this one, 94.6. I'm like, you know what? If it goes past 100, I'm happy anyway. So this one, if it goes down, but since it didn't go down to at least this level, I was looking to buy back in at 88. I bought back in again now, at this level. It's gone below here, but that's why I have a small order to buy in again over here.
mm,
And for example, Doge is here. I got in. So I bought in here, okay, whatever this was 169 sats. I saw it was going up, sold the top, 483. That was a great sell. And now I'm sort of inning and outing, but mostly inning, and I'm not
uh-huh.
willing to sell this position yet because I think this is a strong position. So I enjoy these kinds of sells basically.
Hmm. Yeah, that I think your approach is how
Yeah.
experienced people who've lived through a couple of cycles have to act if you really want to take advantage of the volatility. Otherwise, you just hold it until the exit price is hit, and then you get out or substantially reduce whatever you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for showing me that.
I'm happy to have showed you to you. I'm happy to
That
have
was
showed it to
cool.
you.
Well,
Um,
let's see. In
really great
March,
chat,
yes.
William. I honestly, as I was listening to you, I was saying how lucky I am to have this conversation with such an experienced person, in this field.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I enjoy talking to people who are active and smart, right? That's why I always do. Especially right now. I mean, this is our Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The
It's the
next
most
12
important
months.
year, eh? I think I'll post this one on Stock Money Lizards. I do trading videos on Stock Money Lizards, so I'll send you the
Cool.
link.
All right, cool. Yeah, please do and send it to Shirley. Well, great chatting with you.
Same.
And
Uh,
we'll talk in a couple of months.